Hi everyone, my name is Patrick Akil, and for today's guest, I have Vanessa Sanyauke on. She's the CEO and founder of Girls Talk Corporation, and she shared how she made this side hustle into her main hustle. On top of that, we discuss leveling up in your career, investing in yourself, as well as drive and work ethic, some of my favorite topics. Fun little tidbit, she's a reality TV junkie who doesn't love that stuff. I'll put all her socials in the description below. Check her out, let her know you came from our show, and with that being said, enjoy the episode. I bought like a little desk, and it was going to be my floor desk, but it's actually like a thing you can put on your kitchen table or something like that, and it becomes a standing desk. But I live very minimalistically because I'm planning to work more remote, even outside of Holland, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm going to Portugal in May, and we're planning to go to Barcelona again because I did that last year also, somewhere in September, October. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
That'll be good. Yeah, I want to start trying to do that, but I haven't really kind of worked out the logistics.
Yeah.
So hopefully, I can work that out. I want to try and do like work from somewhere that's hot, but I think for me, I like the UK in the summer.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to do maybe winter, like in December to maybe February.
Yeah.
In a hot climate. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds, we looked at South Africa, and that is like perfect, same time zone, but in our winter, It's their summer, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's where I'm looking because I was out there. My family, I live out there, so I'm actually looking at South Africa actually for December.
Yeah.
So I'm planning to go back. I was there for 2 weeks in Christmas, but now I want to try and do like 6 to 8 weeks and see what it's like. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, friends of mine have done it, but I've never been. But I can see their pictures and like their stories, and it sounds amazing.
It is. It's so good. Yeah, it's really, really good. So I definitely recommend it.
Do you have a physical space you go to in London as well?
We have like co-working spaces. So I'm hoping that once we close our investment round, I want to get office space. So we'll see. But I just use like WeWork for co-working, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I was just saying, I was actually saying to my friend earlier that I need to start going out to the office more because I'm usually home quite a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of the things I need to sort out.
Interesting. And you mentioned you're doing an investment round. What does that mean, or how does that look like?
Yeah, so we've just opened like our pre-seed funding.
Yeah.
So we're raising investment. So we've just launched our web app in beta mode, and we want to expand in the US and Africa. So I'm raising investment for our scale and to develop our app. Yeah.
Awesome.
So,
do you do the pitch yourself, like talking to the investors and like pitching what you have to offer as an organization?
Yeah, so we've got our pitch deck ready, and so now we're just applying for quite a few accelerator programs, but like having conversations now with some VCs and some angels to get some investment. Yeah,
that sounds awesome. It sounds like, I'm looking at it from my perspective, I'd be very nervous going into those conversations. But probably the more you do them, the better you get at them, the less nervous you get. How's that for you?
It's nerve-wracking. Yeah, it's nerve-wracking. Especially like when you kind of, when you look at the stats, like for Black women, we get 0.2% of VC investment. So it feels like you're kind of, it's just not like you haven't got a chance, but the chances are slim.
Yeah.
So I know it's gonna take me longer. So when you kind of have that in your head, sometimes it makes you feel you have to get over the nerves.
Yeah.
So, but I think, the more I do it, the more comfortable I'm getting. Definitely.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, I heard from Denise of that, like getting those investment rounds and even the conversations you can have in there can be pretty harsh for minority groups or even women in that. And that actually caught me off guard because I didn't expect that to be the environment you go into. And it's sad to hear that it is that way.
It is. Yeah. And the data doesn't lie as well. So you can't say, oh, it's women, it's in their heads. It's like, no. I think women got like 2% and then Black women were like 0.02.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
But can you walk us through what your organization is and what you're doing on a more day-to-day?
Yes. So I'm the founder and CEO of Girls Talk Corporation. And essentially what we do is we have a community of 50,000 women. They're in Asia, Africa, Europe, and the Americas, and we connect them to jobs and opportunities. So we're all about increasing the number of women in the global workforce. And so we help companies connect to female talent and then help women to level up in their careers. So essentially what we do, we have our web app that has just launched in beta mode, and it's going to connect female talent across the globe to companies, but then it also allows companies to really showcase their employer brand and connect directly and advertise jobs and opportunities.
Yeah.
They can host their own events as well and mentor on the platform. So we kind of our kind of main funnel now is going to be through our web app, but we also run lots of programs and events that help give women, especially those from marginalized communities, direct access to recruiters. So one of our most famous events is called the Black Girls Tech Summit.
Yeah.
And that connects Black women in tech with recruiters as well.
Awesome. I mean, you mentioned it earlier that it's a global organization, right? Because you're all over. Is your team spread out over the globe as well to accommodate for that?
Yeah, so we have a global team. So we're based in Europe. So the main team is based in the UK, but we also have opened a hub in Lagos, Nigeria, and we've also got a hub in Berlin, Germany as well.
And what does opening up a hub entail? Because if you look at Xebia, like the organization I work at, I looked at our website and we have offices everywhere. And I'm like, is that just an office or is there actually people also working there? Because I never knew we had offices there.
Yeah, it's both. So when you open up a hub, you're really opening up. So we've got a staff member in Lagos, Nigeria, but we also have ambassadors in a community that's based in Lagos as well. But when we say open up a hub, we've got a team member, full-time team member who's based in Lagos, Nigeria. Yeah. And they're looking at growing our community in Nigeria. And then, but I kind of frequent between Berlin and London quite a lot. So we've got co-working space with Factory Berlin in Germany, and then London. The rest of our team are based in London.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I can see myself starting an organization. I've said this on the podcast. I imagine myself in a few years starting something up, and what that is going to be, I have no clue. But initially it would be in a physical space or with people in the same environment where I can sit face to face and have discussions and get stuff done in that way. But I don't see, or I see a lot of challenges in doing that globally, right? Aligning people that are not in the same space, completely somewhere else, and opening a hub even in different countries. What are some of the challenges you've been through with regards to that?
It is challenging, but I think it's also great because for me, we've got a global community. So the advantage is we don't have to necessarily be in the same country. And if I focus my efforts on trying to get a team face to face in one location, it would sort of stumble our growth. I think for me as the CEO and founder, especially as we're expanding our team in the next 18 months, I just have to make sure that I have some kind of presence where some of my core team members are. Yeah. So trying to make sure I visit on a regular basis. And for us as a global team where team members are based all over the UK and globally, we just try and make sure that we check in as much as we can. So, every Monday we have what we call weekly gist or weekly team gist. It's a call that's no more than 20 minutes, and it's just for everyone just to check in with each other, catch up on the weekend, and we just flag any critical or high level kind of information. And then I make sure every week for at least an hour, I check in with each team member. And that is quite tiring, but I find it's so important because when you have team members where you can't see them every day, I want them to have that time with me. I want them to feel like they're part of our organization. And we do lots of things. We have lots of team fun on Zoom virtually. We use Slack a lot. And also, having sort of regular team meetings and just kind of keeping that communication and dialogue makes people feel like they're part of something.
Yeah.
But I feel, though, that I do miss the kind of face-to-face. So I feel like hybrid is better. So when you have some time face-to-face and then sometimes remote.
Yeah, I mean, those are always going to be learnings, right? Because remote working, I mean, it's been there for a few years and Corona kind of accelerated it, the pandemic. But it hasn't been established what the best way of working is. And even so, you can have preferences in the way that you work together, right? And I love that you're saying that you take time to build the relationships with the people working in your team, because that's an incredibly important feeling to be part of a team in that way as well, to have that conversation with you for their own personal growth and opportunities, and for bonding, because at the end of the day, you're going to do this as a team. So you also need to operate as a team instead of as a group of individuals spread across the globe in that way.
Yeah, exactly.
How did you get like a community up and running? Because I heard that a lot, maybe even from a marketing point of view. We go there and we're trying to build a community. And I can see partially how you do that with a lot of networking, but how has that been for you? How have you built this community up to a number that you mentioned, like 50K or something like that?
You have to be organic. And I see a lot of, I guess, startups, they are starting up to build a community, and that's quite challenging.
Yeah.
So I worked backwards. I built my community and then built a company that was able to then service that community, if that makes sense. So you have to really be authentic. When I started Girls Talk 10 years ago, there wasn't this type of community available for me in London. And so I set it up, and I started out small. So I started my first event. I got about 50 schoolgirls from London and 5 women that I knew who worked in the city. And we would then meet up every quarter to host small events. And then after about a year doing events, I then thought of the name Girls Talk London, registered the name, and then had a website. And then I started posting articles on the website, and then started our social media pages. And then you just slowly build and grow and take your time. I never had the end goal to be, I want to have 50,000 women in my community. I could never have envisioned that, but I knew that I wanted to make a difference and create a safe space for women. And so I think you have to really think about your purpose, what you want to achieve, and put in the time. It's taken me 10 years to build this community. And yes, if I had maybe the resources and finance, we could be maybe further along, fair enough. But what I love about my community is that it's authentic and they're very engaged. So you really have to be genuine, because people can suss out if you're not, and if you're just trying to profit off of a community and use it for your benefit. You have to always put them first and think about what their needs are and how you can support them. And so that's what my advice would be for anyone who's thinking about that.
Yeah, from the ground up, the way you describe it, I can't see it going well in any other way, right? Because if you go with kind of an end goal in mind, I want to have 100K people in a community, like, what does that even mean, and where does that come from, right? The only way to do that sustainably for the long term and in an authentic way is for that to be your passion. And then the number doesn't matter at the end of the day, because you're going to do it regardless of the number, right? Because you want this, you envision something for this, and you want to service a certain community. I think that's the only way to sustainably build something up. And one of the things you mentioned in being authentic for the community, and also for people that view you as part of that community, the importance of that. I had a conversation with Alex Freiberg, and he has a YouTube channel and he does content creation on full time. And he talked to me about sponsorships, and an important aspect of that for him was also staying authentic. And he gave me an example of like a sponsorship deal gone bad, where he had to promote something he didn't really believe in anymore because some part of the agreement all of a sudden changed. And I think that's very hard for someone in that position to stay authentic and truly yourself if it's not from the ground up. Have you had any experiences where you're like, oh, I probably should have done this differently because this is not me, or this is not what I want to be?
I suppose some examples have been, so there have been a few companies where, one company in particular where the founder is very controversial.
Yeah.
Has sort of made, I guess, borderline sexist, racist remarks. And I've just said I really didn't want to kind of engage in conversations further. So I do look at that. I do look at, when we partner with companies, like I look at the behaviors of the founder and CEOs. I look at what's been going on in the news, how are they treating their employees, because I don't want to put my community into jobs for a company that doesn't treat their employees right. So I don't necessarily just think, okay, let me just work with any company. There is a process, and we look closely at each corporate partner to make sure that they're the right fit. So I've never worked with a company where on the outset I felt that there wasn't some kind of genuine synergy there.
Yeah.
I have had instances where companies have shown, or their employees have shown, a lack of integrity, and I've just disengaged with them. So I am quite confident and want to be assured that in terms of how we do business, that we work with people who have integrity, who treat us with respect. And sadly, not all employees in companies behave like that. So when that's the case, we don't work with them.
Yeah, I can imagine if your values don't align, or if you see a lack of integrity in certain aspect of doing business, then the only way to go forward is to cut that off and to move on, right? Because if you associate yourself with that, it's going to have a kind of dishonest feeling and a distrust of the community that is in there that you engage with as well.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the main things you do, one of the two main things you mentioned, is linking your community to businesses, right? For them to have a career in that way as well. And an aspect you described is you analyze the corporations to do so. But what does that linking process, what does that entail? Like, do you do conversations with the people that apply, or does that go to a recruiter of the company? And how much involved are you in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we just want to make sure that our community get access to lots of jobs and opportunities as possible. So it just depends on the, I guess, resource from the company side. So we just kind of iron out how they want to support, because it depends on the industry. So it depends on the industry and what initiatives we have which they can support. And then we kind of align that way. And then the idea of our web app is we just want as many companies as possible to come on there, and then they can kind of decide how they want to utilize the platform, because there's loads of different features that are going to be coming up as well. So they can use it as a way to showcase their employer brand. They can host their own events. They can mentor on the platform. They can advertise jobs and opportunities. So it's really about how much a company wants to get involved and how much capacity they have. And then as long as we feel like they align in terms of values and we can identify ways for them to support our community, then we're good to go.
Yeah, interesting. And for the people that then apply at those companies that put themselves out there, what if something you've seen that people look at the most? Like, is it employee branding? Is it like work-life balance? Like, what are some of those company aspects that are really like make or break in those conversations or those roles?
It's culture. So it's how do they treat their employees? What kind of environment is it for employees on a day-to-day?
Yeah.
And also about the career progression. People want to know, what's my journey going to be like in this company for the next, say, at least 3 to 5 years? And they want to understand that journey and really understand that they're going to have lots of different career opportunities. They're going to have, visibility, and they're going to grow and develop. And that's ultimately what our community look for, because our community in particular are very ambitious women.
Yeah.
So they want to progress and sort of rise to the top.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, for me, it's hard, and I'm going to take this use case of my personal environment where people join, let's say, a big tech organization, or even a few, because I know a few of people that have this. And from an outward-facing perspective, employee branding is on point. There's lots of career growth and opportunities in there. At least that's how it's marketed. But then when they find themselves in a position like that, all of a sudden they're stuck. They're there for a year or two without any promotion. It's hard to move horizontally, let alone vertically. And they just have this feeling of stuck. And they can do stuff to kind of try and progress, but they might hear a lot of no. And with that in mind, they're like, okay, maybe not this year, but next year. And all of a sudden they're years down the line, and that ambition kind of, I wouldn't say diminishes, but that is kind of the feeling I get sometimes. And I think it's a real shame, because from an outward point of view, everything looks fine and dandy. But then when you find yourself within an organization, it's really hard to kind of level up with regards to your growth and career path. Is that something you've seen as well? And next to that, what would you advise for people that find themselves in a position like that?
It's very individual, and it really varies in terms of the size of the organization. So, for example, if you work for a corporate where they maybe have 100,000 employees and they're in 100 countries, for example, you're going to have more opportunity to think about working internationally or moving to a different department. So if it just depends. If you're working for a smaller company where maybe you could even have 10 employees, there's a little bit I guess, less room to kind of go up that career path. But then you have to think about your role as an entrepreneur and maybe create your own job spec. Think a bit more about how you can add value and drive the business. So it really, really does depend. I think women need to think about their career as an individual and what they want to get out of it, because then you'll manage your expectations. There are some people that, for example, will get a job with a startup and then expect to be on a 6-figure salary after 6 months.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen, right? But maybe you might work for a large multi-billion company. And if you hit the ground running and you're an awesome star player, you might, So you really have to understand what industry you're in, understand the size of your business, understand the lay of the land, because that's where I find a lot of women get disappointed because they don't manage their expectations.
Yeah.
And they're not really making conscious next career steps.
What do you mean with like conscious next career steps? Is that like putting yourself in a position to do so, or what do you mean with that?
Yeah, think about what company you want to work at, because if you want a very fast career progression, maybe you need to work at a bit more of a larger organization, because then you're going to have more scope for those, after a year. You could, for example, I've had one of my family members, after she started working for a big international bank, and after a year, she got a job in Dubai. So with those larger companies where they have loads of a massive global footprint, you can, after a year, get an exciting new job, move country. And so it's about thinking about where it is that you want to work and being quite conscious about that, looking at their footprint. Some people might want to work for a smaller company, but then you have to bear in mind that then the career progression might be 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
And how are you going to create, those kind of career opportunities for yourself? So, for example, if you're working for a smaller company, you have to think like an entrepreneur. So think about, can you bring new business to this company? Can you even create a role? Can you see a gap in the market that they could enter into? I feel like smaller companies, what's quite exciting is you can kind of make the job your own.
Yeah.
So I think it's just getting clear on those things, because that's when you're more conscious about your career steps and you're making the right career steps for you.
Yeah, I like that a lot. For me, it always helps to have a conversation with someone about that, like about me, my role and my vision and my career. Because I like, just because of the day-to-day things, you don't really take a step back and think of that, right? But if you have a conversation with someone and the purpose of that is to do that, then all of a sudden, a lot of information, a lot of insights happen. Do you offer that as well, like within your community, or are those what the meetups are for, or the conversations are about?
Yeah, that's what we have our meetups for. So we have our meetups for them we talk about different topics where they can hear from different women who've had different career journeys. We also have a newsletter that goes out globally it's every 2 weeks. And we have a lot of thought leadership pieces on how women can approach their careers. And we also spotlight our community members as well. So we do a lot of that in our meetups and in our newsletter as well.
Yeah, interesting. For me, one of the things I still had a thought about when it comes to leveling up in your career is that I know people and they are at their dream company, right? Size-wise and potential career opportunity-wise, yet they still feel stuck. And then they're like, okay, I see people leaving the company and coming back in X amount of years, but they don't want to leave the company, right? Because that then looks weird as well if you leave and then kind of boomerang back. So then they still feel like they're waiting. And bigger companies, more hierarchical organizations have kind of structures and governance in place where moving upwards happens on a yearly basis, maybe on a bi-yearly basis. And if you skip one of the bi-yearly, like, I guess, how do you say that, slots, because there's only a few available slots for actual promotions, then you have to wait another year or maybe even 2 years in that way. So then your career progression from an expectation point of view might not be what you expected in joining this company, yet you do find yourself in your dream company not being able to move upwards. Have you seen that as well?
Yeah, I've seen that in my own career. And that's why I kind of ultimately just thought, you know what, I'm going to just, pursue growing my own company and being in control of my own destiny. So I think at that point, if you feel like you've hit a glass ceiling, then it is a sign, okay, it's time to move on.
Yeah.
That's a sign. yeah, if you feel like that's it, it's time to move on.
Do people usually take that decision more easily? Because I feel like I look around in companies when I feel like I've hit a wall, when I've exhausted every single option within my own company. That's then when I look outwards. But when I have conversations with people that feel stuck in this, they feel kind of opposed to that. They'd rather wait it out and maybe wait until opportunity arises, yet it may not arise in any case. And I like that you said, like, it's time to move on. But I do find that people have a hard time making that decision and move on.
Yeah, you've got to be calculated. So I wouldn't quit a job if you haven't got another job lined up or you haven't saved at least 6 months worth of expenses. I think in this climate, you really need a year. So you need to make sure that if you feel like your time is up, I would say get another job before leaving. But if you feel that you just want to get out of that environment, then you need to make sure that you can pay all of your expenses. And I'm talking about having that social life and everything for at least 6 to 12 months in this climate before you move. So it has to be calculated and planned.
Yeah, I align with that as well. I mean, you said for yourself that was also at some point the case in which you moved on and started what you have now. But that's like something that happened, I think, over 10 years ago. Can you walk us through kind of the transition in there and those decisions you made as well with regards to that?
Well, I'd always run Girls Talk as a side hustle. So I actually left my job two years ago. So so Girls Talk was always, on the side. So I'd worked in diversity and inclusion. I've worked in D&I for over 16 years. So I'd been a head of D&I at a law firm. I worked as a D&I manager at UK Parliament. And then my last role was at an international bank. And I was part of the D&I team doing their global strategy. So it was at my last role at the international bank when I just felt that Girls Talk was growing. And where I was working, it was a very toxic environment for me. I didn't see that the career progression wasn't really there. It was just so bureaucratic. And I just thought, let me just focus on my business. So I think I've been working for a really long time and it was just time for me. For me to go. If I hadn't have had my own business, then I would have found another role.
Interesting. Yeah. I like that it started out as a side hustle because then the transition to do that full time is not that much of a big bang, right? Because it's fairly established and then you can just spend your time and attention full time on it and try and accelerate the process in that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you think a lot of people start kind of a side hustle on their job nowadays? Because I hear that more often than previously. And I mean, I can see the podcast as kind of an example of that, this podcast. I know you've started a podcast also to have conversations on. I have a separate YouTube channel, which, I mean, it's like to call it a side hustle, but it is something that I would love for it to blow up. And I think people do that more and more. It's also more easy to do so. Is that a trend you've seen as well?
Yeah, I always say to people, though, make sure when you set up a side hustle, you do your main hustle very well. So I was really good at my job. I was really passionate about it because I just love diversity and inclusion. So actually my side hustle was still related to my main hustle. So I would say, number one, make sure you do an excellent job in your main hustle, number one.
Yeah.
And I think with the side hustle, with the climate now, there's so many layoffs and so many situations that can go wrong, so many emergencies that can come up. So my side hustle enabled me to get on the London property ladder, which is very difficult. Having two incomes helped me. So your side hustle can help you with that. It can help you get out of debt. It can really add a lot of value, but you just have to make sure. When I was doing my side hustle, I would get burnt out quite a lot. So you're going to be at risk of burnout. And I think you have to be quite clear about where the burnout is coming from, because sometimes you might think, oh, it's my job that's giving me burnout. But at some point, my side hustle was, because doing the two is quite a lot.
Yeah.
So you do have to really manage your time, manage your well-being, so that you're not kind of overextending yourself as well.
Yeah. Can you walk me through the situation that occurred for you when you kind of felt that you were heading towards a burnout? You mentioned you were busy with obviously two things at the same time. And obviously if you can spend full-time attention to both of them, you would. Yet your body and probably your mind cannot keep up. That's why you're heading towards burnout. Like, can you walk me through that case?
Yeah, it was at the point where our work remit with Girls Talk was just growing and growing and growing. So we had loads of clients coming, wanting to sponsor events. But then also with my day job, as I mentioned, the environment just was not conducive for me to work in.
Yeah.
So that increases burnout, because if you're working in a toxic environment and you're not happy in your day job, that stress builds up. So I think it was during a very busy event season for us, which is in Q4. And that's when I realized, you know what, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So I think you start to just to feel exhausted. And I mean, I do experience burnout actually even now as an entrepreneur, but I think when you have a side hustle, you can. But you just notice that, you know, you can become quite irritable, or you're having trouble sleeping, or you're just feeling really lethargic and down. That's a sign of, you know, burnout.
Yeah. And how do you deal with that when you feel those signals, or when others flag those signals and they see it in you? Yeah. What do you do to kind of, take a break from that?
It's hard because sometimes you can't just stop everything that you're doing. So I think you just have to think about, okay, when's my next holiday? Try and book something as soon as possible for at least a week, where you don't look at emails. You just try and see if you can be somewhere where you can zone out and relax, be in your happy place, and just take some time for you and just to sleep. Sometimes all you need to do is sleep. All you need to do is nothing.
Yeah.
So try and book in that time, and then start just saying no to things. Sometimes burnout comes out from saying yes to absolutely everything. So think about what can come off the calendar. If it's not what I had this term business critical, i.e. if it doesn't determine my income, it can come out the diary. Yeah. So just really think about what is business critical. Are there meetings with your clients that pay you? If it is, you keep it in. Any other meetings can go. So start trying to clear out your calendar and move things that are not urgent. Start trying to go to bed earlier, you know, even if you have to do like a 9 to 5, and then just pull back a little bit from your side hustle. Those small things will help you like slowly address the signs of burnout.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. So it's taking care of yourself and looking after your well-being. Well, the hard part of that is that very ambitious people with a high sense of responsibility want to do as much as possible. And I think they're a target group that looks after themselves the least, which is also why those people are more, they have a higher chance of heading towards a burnout in that way. It's something I've recognized within myself, where I did so many things back to back to back, and I heard signals from friends and family that said, we haven't seen you again, or not again, but in a while, in quite a while actually. And that for me was a signal like, okay, I can explain this, but it's all going to sound like excuses because I'm doing this to myself. I'm saying yes to all those things. And it comes from a good place because I want to do all those things. I love doing all those things. But maybe it's not realistic. Maybe it's not possible. And it's definitely not sustainable for the long run. But I have absolute difficulty saying no to the things I love doing. It's something I'm trying to improve. Hopefully I'm getting better at as well, in writing down goals and things I want to focus on. Yet it still is a hard thing to do. Yeah. What have you done to kind of cultivate that skill of saying no? Is that an easy thing for you, or do you struggle with it as well?
I struggle with it as well, because we're a small team, but we have like a massive remit. So that's why I'm raising investment to grow my team, because I can just feel we're at that point now where we're just like at capacity.
Yeah.
But for me, I have to be just transparent and honest. If you're a startup and you're trying to grow, for me, I'm in that situation where you have to be very careful about what you're saying no to. It's such a difficult climate right now.
Yeah.
I don't have the luxury of saying no all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of in that grind mode. I think it's just, for me, it's just making sure that I'm carving out downtime right now rather than saying no. I think I would say no if I feel like, okay, my health is in jeopardy.
Yeah.
So I have to just be quite honest and transparent. Yeah, I think I'm in startup grind mode. It's not easy. There's so many barriers for me as it is that I'm just in that zone right now. But I think I am being just a little bit more cautious about sort of making sure I have downtime, rather than being in the no phase. And everyone, I think, is in different phases. Yeah,
I can imagine. So I like that perspective. It's very realistic, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you are within a company, within a job, then it's a bit, maybe safe is not the right word, but you have less risk, right? Because if you're in your startup and you're kind of at the helm of that startup, then saying no might just lose you an opportunity. And in that way, especially in this economy, it might spiral as well into a place you don't want to go to. So with that in mind, saying no might not be the right way to go about it. But I like then that you're mindful of that maybe right now you're not in a position to say no all the time. But then that downtime is how you make it more sustainable than it would be otherwise. Because otherwise it's going to be a very, very long, harsh road ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I guess it's like not saying no to, I guess, meetings or things like that, but I definitely will say no to people who I feel aren't the right fit for me.
Yeah.
So if, an example can be people that don't really maybe sort of value your time, for example, when you think, oh, this person, it could be maybe you're thinking about getting an advisor or working with someone and they just show a lack of consideration for your time. Maybe you just don't get great energy from them. You just feel like maybe they're not aligned. You can choose as well, like who you want to work with and who you want to go on this journey with as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, because just because you might think, oh my God, but this person is X and they're in this industry, the right people for you will be the right people for you. And there are some people that just aren't suited, and you should be okay with that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I like that a lot. I mean, you come across as someone that has like a really good sense of self-awareness in that way, right? Even when you talk about your burnout or the way you invested in yourself in starting up a side gig and making that your main hustle.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm wondering people always talk about investing in yourself, right? And that can be in education, it can be in trainings, it can be in starting something that you can make your full-time career in. What is something that you invested in with regards to yourself that really has paid for the long run in that way?
I think I've always invested in, for example, attending events when I was starting out, going to events where I could upskill as a leader. So I've invested a lot of time in, listening. So like reading, I'm an avid reader. So I listen to a lot of audible books. I read books, listen to podcasts, go out to events where I can hear from people who I want to be like.
Yeah.
I watch a lot of YouTube interviews. That's really pretty much what I do. I'm always trying to get that knowledge. So it's investing that time. And if I've had to upskill or go to a course or a conference, I will do that.
Yeah.
And I think also people talk a lot about, okay, investing in yourself, but people also don't talk about the sacrifice. So I took a lot of sacrifices as well throughout my career, where I was doing a lot of girls talk stuff for free. I was putting my own money into some of our events. So I would pay for all of the refreshments, food, venue hire. I was out of pocket, and I was a very broke 20-year-old in London. So I was always broke, putting in all my money, investing in girls talk. I funded the website, my first website myself. Everything that we did throughout the years, it's been money from me. And so I think that's how I've invested in myself as well, like putting my resources into my business before I asked a corporate to then pay us and work with us.
Yeah.
I was putting in my money. And what that meant was I'd see a lot of my friends were buying houses way before me. We're going on really nice holidays. We're wearing lovely clothes and just looking amazing, right? All of these small things.
Yeah.
And I was only able to do that, I guess, reasonably recently. So that's a sacrifice and investment people don't always realize. You've got to put money into your business first. You have to be your first investor.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love how it got to that point, right? Because you've invested so much time and effort and even resources of your own into your organization, and it has gotten to a point where it's paying dividends, right? And it will for the future. But that road towards that must have been a hard one and a long one as well. And I think it takes an incredible amount of work ethic from someone in that position to, first of all, believe in themselves, invest in what they want to create, even before it pays dividends. Because everyone at some point, when you make it, they're going to be like, oh, that's amazing. But when you're on that road, really churning it out, working as hard as you can, you haven't been established yet. So people don't give you those compliments. So the only one that believes in you is probably your team and yourself and the people that stand behind you. So I think that's very, very commendable. That's awesome.
Thank you.
How have you gotten your work ethic to this point? Because everything you talk about, everything, and even the way you come across, it sounds like you have great work ethic in the things that you do, the decisions that you make as well. Is that something that's happened in the past that you've cultivated, or how'd you get your work ethic up to this point?
I'd say like my mum's been quite influential for me. So growing up, she always had 2 or 3 jobs. And so she was always working really hard so that we could be comfortable. And I was raised understanding and seeing that if you want to have something nice, you've got to work for it. So that's always been instilled in me. So we in the UK, we have like this, back in the day, if you wanted to get a job, you had to get a national insurance number.
Yeah.
So I think I got mine when I was like 15 or 16. And the minute I got that card, I got a part-time job. So I've been working nonstop since I was 16. So I've always had a job, and I've always understood that if you want to do things, you need to have a job to do that. So that was always instilled in me from very young. And I think I've always been very entrepreneurial. I've always loved to create things, and just understood that, that you have the power to create, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's so exciting. So I've always been really inspired by that. And I just know that I feel like I found my purpose, and I feel like I'm meant to be doing what I'm doing now. So my work ethic comes from also being able to make a difference. Like I always want to make a difference and do something really great with my time on this earth. And I think that's what motivates me.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's a lot of similarities actually in my personal past. My mom has always been my role model. And as soon as I could work, I worked my ass off basically, because I had kind of the same environment. If you want something, you work hard for it. That's the only way you're going to get it. Nothing is going to be given to you. And that for me has always put a perspective of I'm in control, right? If I want something, I'll put in the work to do that. Nothing is going to get handed to me. And I feel like the people that haven't gotten the same upbringing, or maybe the environment, think some stuff should just be handed to them. And I think it's very hard to have those conversations with those people, because I can't see it from their perspective at all.
Same
right?
here.
You're in the driver's seat. So if you want something, you make it happen. You don't wait until something is handed to you.
Exactly. And I think we're in a culture now in our society where there's a society that is driven by entitlement. And for me, that really rubs me up the wrong way. I feel that you need to think about, how are you adding value? A lot of people, I'm seeing a lot of people, and I'm coming across a lot of people who have this sense of entitlement. I should be getting this, or I should have this job title. I should have this car. I should have this house. Why should you? You've got to, like you said, I've always been raised, okay, if you want that car, if you want that job, if you want that title, what are you doing to really get yourself to that place where you can acquire that? Things are not just given to you. And I do feel that social media plays a role, that people think about overnight success, and they think that everyone is living a certain life, and that they're not really seeing the journey and the hard work, as we're talking about, that goes behind what people are achieving. They might see an influencer driving a nice car, but they don't know that that influencer for the last 10 years has been consistently putting out 3-4 videos a day. How much planning and editing and all of that behind the scenes goes into them living that lifestyle. And I think that's what's missing in our culture today.
I agree with that as well. I think work ethic and achievements should be celebrated, but the road to get to that should also be celebrated, right? If someone puts in the same amount of effort day in, day out, consistency out the wazoo, and works their ass off, I think that is way more commendable than the assets they gain from that, or the celebrity or the fame they get from that, because that's all, for me, that's all surface level. For me, what happens under the hood, how someone gets to that point because of their work drive and ethic, basically, I think that's the thing that we should celebrate. But that's not what we celebrate on social media. That's kind of the shame of it, I feel like.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this conversation, Vanessa, talking about your own journey, your work ethic and your drive, what you're doing on a day-to-day. And I'm really happy I got you on the podcast to talk about this. Is there anything you still want to say before we leave off?
I just want to say, just please do keep in touch with me. Your community can follow me on socials, And yeah, check out at Girls Talk Global. That's our social media handle as well. So thank you for having me. I've enjoyed this conversation as well.
Awesome. Me too. I'm going to put all Vanessa's socials in the description below, as well as a link to Girls Talk London. Check it out. Let her know you came from our show. And with that being said, thank you for listening. We'll see you on the next one.